Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting parents whose children have passed. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. HPH goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non dogmatic way. HPH affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members, so we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome,
Thank,
everybody.
thank you, Lynn. We are really excited to interview Amber today about her new beautiful book, Science 101. So I am going to read a little bit about Amber. All right. When your child dies, the world tells you they're gone. But what if they're not? After losing her son Jagger in 2020, Amber Briscoe discovered something that changed everything. The signs were real. The feathers, the numbers, the songs that played at impossible moments. They weren't connected. They weren't coincidence. They were connection. Signs 101 is the gentle guide Amber wished someone had given her in those first raw months. Amber Briscoe is a writer and producer whose work explores grief, loss, and the way parents continue to feel connected to their children after death. She began her career in television, producing award winning documentaries and working as a field producer for entertainment news magazines, including Access Hollywood and Extra, before moving into advertising production. After the death of her son Jagger in 2020, everything changed. In her search to maintain connection with him, Amber studied mediumship, numerology, and other spiritual modalities, not as a practitioner, but as a mother, desperate to understand the language her son was speaking. What she discovered reshaped her understanding of grief, loss, love, and connection. Signs 101 is the gentle guide Amber wished someone had given her in those early months. Written for parents navigating life after loss of a child, it offers clear explanations of common signs, real stories from families who have experienced ongoing connection, and practical ways to strengthen that bond. Amber is currently at work on her documentary, Tragic to Magic, exploring after death communication within the parent loss community, as well as a memoir telling Jagger's story. Through her writing and film work, she offers light and reassurance to others walking this path. To learn more, Tragic to Magic. Your child is still here. They're just speaking a different language now. Welcome, Amber. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Why don't you start by giving us a little background on you and your beautiful Jagger?
Sure. So Jagger is my only child, and I mean, I know everybody's proud of their child, but he was like very funny, the funniest person I ever met, super smart, like whip smart. And he very loving. Little kids and babies were drawn to him all the time, so we called him the baby whisperer. Um, and he also had ADHD and struggled a bit. And, he did self-medicate. I lost him really unexpectedly to an accidental overdose in 2020. And it was really out of the blue. I mean, I was about ready to wake him up for work, it just was shocking. And I heard him in his room. Like, and what I found out later was when I heard the noises in his room was probably about the time that he transitioned. So he made a lot of noise right out of the gate. So.
That's beautiful. That's always wonderful. Were you spiritual prior to that? Did you?
No, well, I mean, I think that I tried to pay attention to the universe, I guess, but I didn't have any fixed beliefs about the afterlife. And when these things were happening, lights switching on and off, or the very day that Jagger passed, the smoke alarm was going off in my room all night, and it didn't register as what was going on. Even the noise in his room, like I didn't really make those connections until later. And I think that I also would sometimes convince myself you're just a desperate, grieving mom, making things up to make yourself feel better. I think I was one of those people who needed permission to believe that the signs were really happening, you know?
Yes.
So no, it's been and I think everybody probably on this call knows how it just breaks you open. The loss of a child breaks you open and you kind of rebuild from the ground up. And it opened me up to spirituality.
Absolutely. They work really, really hard to do that.
Yeah,
Just
they
to,
do.
they want us to, they want us to be okay. And they're just, especially in the beginning, the signs are just insane because most of the time, I mean, sometimes some of us are just so blocked they don't see it, but they just want us to be happy. So, well, how
Yeah.
do you define a sign? How would you define a sign from a
Well,
loved one who has passed?
I think for me, like a sign is something that it's more like you feel it than anything else, and it's personal, and it's usually the timing is right. And I mean, I'm not somebody who thinks that every yellow butterfly is my son, but certain things are just undeniable. And I think a big part of it is being open to it, and again, giving yourself permission to believe that you really are communicating.
Absolutely. For me, everything now is, I mean, if it's a sign, if I think it's a sign, it's definitely a sign.
It's a sign. Yeah,
That's
I
what I tell
totally
parents.
agree.
I'm like, I'll see them right on the HPH. Is this a sign? I'm like, absolutely. If you're
Yes,
asking if it's a sign, it's a sign.
it
They put the
absolutely
thoughts in
is.
our heads. And you also talk, what are some of the common types of signs that you talk about in your book?
Well, one of the big ones for me is numbers. And it's funny because, I have studied numerology with Sue too, but the numbers, I started seeing 1111 before Jagger passed. And I would say to him 1111, and he would kind of roll his eyes at me. And about a year before he passed, I started seeing 420 all the time. And now, for those of you who know, 420 is code for, smoking marijuana. And so I
Mhm.
would send him like, Jagger, I keep seeing 420. And he was at school and he'd give me like the perfunctory dad laugh. And then when he passed, he was in a home that was at 420 on the street. So, like, sometimes you don't know until later uh, what is a sign. I didn't realize that. That 420 thing I didn't realize until about 3 months ago. I was talking to one of my friends and I was saying, oh, yeah, he was in a house numbered 420. So some of the other signs, but to answer your question, are, songs that pop up at opportune moments, or I get into some AI experiments that I had done and other people have done, found objects, automatic writing, sometimes you get, and dreams, of course, dreams are a big one.
Absolutely. And isn't it funny how they start to kind of, like you said, you started to see 1111 before. It's almost like
Yeah.
it's all in divine order. And as far as the way it happened, he knew I believe he knew
Yeah.
he was going to pass. And I mean, maybe as a human, he didn't, but his soul knew. And they start to set the scene. They start to set the scene. There were things that happened before Tyler passed that then I remembered after the fact.
Yeah.
And so it's
Well,
just, go ahead.
yeah, sorry.
No, no.
No,
Go.
I was just going to say there were a lot of things that I found in my papers and, drawings that Jagger did and things that I had written that just pointed to that this was going to happen when it did. And I didn't have any belief in a soul contract at all. But I did have this split second when I was driving to the hospital where I just had this feeling like, of course, this is happening right now. Like it was on schedule. And as soon as I had it, it went away. Like as soon as I started intellectualizing, like, well, that's a weird thing to think, it went away. But,
Yeah. Well, I remember early on in my journey, my one of my youngest sister had a friend, and she said that, and I don't remember, it was in the news. You may have remembered, but anyway, her youngest child got run over accidentally by the grandfather because he was back in the back. But earlier, he had made a picture at school, and he included his family, but he didn't include himself. And his mom had said, "Where are you in the picture?" And he went, "Oh," and he went back and he drew himself up in the sky, like up in the
Mhm.
clouds. And she said, "Why are you up here?" But then shortly thereafter, he passed away in that horrible accident. So that was, it just goes to show the soul. Again, I think he was 4. He was just a young child. But that's why I said, it's kind of, I believe in the soul plan. I believe that we can't have any guilt for however our children have crossed, because it was just part of their contract. That's my belief. So, but
Mhm.
would you say that the signs, I mean, they provide comfort and reassurance? How have they helped you? Can you tell us a little bit about your experience, maybe when it finally it became a reality, like this is real? I mean, how did those signs help you in your journey?
Well, the science kept me alive, frankly. I think that, I'm a single mom to an only child, and I didn't think that I was going to survive in the beginning. It's funny, I was talking to a friend today, and she was talking about spending the night on my sofa, and I'm like, oh, yeah, back when I had to have friends babysit me because everybody was worried that I wasn't going to hang on. And so the signs, once I started to recognize them and made a choice to believe that they were real and they were really happening, um, then it just opened the floodgates of me wanting to continue to learn everything I could.
Mhm.
Like many of you, I devoured books, I watched documentaries, I listened to near-death experiences. Like those would help me fall asleep listening to those. And it just, and then choosing to believe turned into having faith, turned into just knowing. And
Mhm.
that turned into having a continued relationship. My relationship with Jagger grows and changes, and he guides me. And yeah, it's just so that's what signs did for me.
Absolutely. And then it's like, I always felt like I had this just a 24-hour angel with me
Yeah.
at all times. Suddenly you don't. Before he passed, you're it's in this human body, and I was so much more afraid of things. And then it's like you feel like you've just got this person with you that's always watching you, always watching you. So
Hmm.
that always helped with the journey. And like you said, I read every book. I tell new parents, especially, just spend day by day and spend this every day. I spent the first year immersing myself in everything I could do. And it kept me busy and it kept me learning. And for me, it saved me. Elizabeth, I always tell Elizabeth, she saved me because at the beginning, we didn't have the YouTube channel on HPH. That was a silver lining with COVID. We developed this channel, and so I had to get online and try to find videos. But she would tell me, read this book and read this book. And I'm writing everything down. And it was, thank goodness for her. She was,
Well, you know how I found HPH was I was Googling like what happens when you die because I was spinning. I felt like I was looking for him. Like it didn't make any sense
Mhm,
to me that that huge personality that could just be gone. It made no
mhm,
sense. So I Googled what happens when you die, and the first thing that came up was like the medical explanation, the heart stops, this happens, that happens. Then there was sort of a religious perspective about, going to heaven or whatever. And then there was the HPH video with all of you beautiful parents holding up pictures of your children smiling. And I was like, why are they smiling? And that
Aw,
was it. And then I was hooked, and then I started getting on every meeting I could. And I wanted to say about the books, though, one of the reasons that I wrote this book is that, if in for me, after Jagger passed, I had a ton of people send me books, all kinds of books. I had like a good stack of books from well-meaning friends, and I couldn't get through them. It was too much for me in early grief. And I wanted like somebody to tell me, okay, it's okay to believe that this is happening. This is what you look for. Here's how you can get more. Here's how you can understand them. And I needed it to be like in little bite-sized pieces that I could actually take in between crying and eating potato chips and not getting out of bed. And
exactly.
and I'm so proud that the book kind of came out to be what I wish I had had, you know?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. When I read your book, I thought this is such a perfect book for anybody, but especially for a new person who's in this deep grief. Because when I would read these books, I would just think, just give me something that's going to help me. You
Yeah.
don't want to read on and on about all this tragedy because you're already feeling that. You're like, I'm sorry that you're going through this, but tell me something that's going to help me. And
Yeah.
that's what I love about your book because right from the get-go, it's an easy read and you could just start getting information on the validations and it makes you feel good. And so I love it. I love it. What would you say to people who say to you, well, I don't see signs?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, I mean, it's a new language and it's a new thing. If you're not accustomed to, looking for signs in the universe, like should I take this job or is there a speed bump there that's telling me to go a different direction? It might take you a little more work. I think probably there's some truth to the fact that our kids who are newly transitioned are probably learning as much as we are. I guess. I mean, I won't know that for sure until I get there, but I think, you'll hear a lot of mediums talk about how grief is a really dense, low vibration, and that could keep you from paying attention or, from noticing signs. I personally think that Jagger's probably sending me way more signs than I see, you know? And I think, like when you are training to learn how to be a medium or to learn Reiki, you are learning to attune to energy that most of us are not attuned to. And I think
Mhm.
a big way that I kind of cleared the channel was through meditation. And that kind of like almost bridged the gap a little bit. Um, but what I would say to a parent is, just ask for a sign. Just say like, if you're there, and you can be specific about it. Send me a purple giraffe, and just express gratitude. I
Yeah,
think gratitude is really the key that turns that lock. Um, and also keeping a dream journal is a good way to invite dream visitations because it helps train you to remember what you dreamt, you
I
know?
agree. Yes, absolutely. There is a question here from Douglas. He says, how did Amber evolve to numerology and how does she apply it to her journey with her son?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, Back in 2014, I lost a job and I had a bunch of things happen all at once. And it was 6 years before my son passed. And I found Sue Frederick's book, I See Your Dream Job. I read the book cover to cover. It really resonated with me. I ended up finding her on LinkedIn. She did a reading with me in which she asked me about not only my birth date, and we talked about my life path, but also Jagger's. And she was asking me about, does he believe in God? And I said, I think, or is he spiritual? And I said, I think he believes in God. And she basically talked about his, sensitivity and in a way almost kind of said some very prescient things about his passing, which when I heard later, it was only then that I really got it. She also said in that reading that I'd be working with people with grief. And at that time, I didn't even know anybody in grief. What she said to me made no sense. But here I am, I am an 11 life path, which is, sensitive to spiritual communication. And we are supposed to be healers and writers and all of a sudden, like I'm doing this work, and Jagger is a 7 life path. Our soul agreement is a 9, which is about ultimate lessons and about letting go. Jagger continues to be my greatest teacher. And, we were talking before the meeting started about how I am now in a 9 personal year. And it just so happens I'm selling everything I own and driving across the country. So, so
Uh,
I'm kind of right on schedule. So, yeah, I pay attention to, you know, what personal year I'm in, what my soul agreement might be with another person. Um, so I hope I answered the question, but yeah, it's become really important.
it is crazy how much it resonates. I didn't have any spiritual belief before Tyler passed. So I thought that was it. And he was gone. And it's funny. Then, of course, I got into helping parents heal and everything cracked me open. And then when I met Sue, I started learning about numerology and I went back and looked up the year Tyler passed away because what year I was in. And sure enough, it was a 7 personal year. Well, 7 personal year is the year of, spirituality. And I thought, wow, that was the year that I got cracked open. And
Mhm.
because I thought at first, oh, it had to be a 9 year, because a 9 years tough and changes. But actually 7 made more sense for me. And so anyway, yes, the numerology, it's kind of crazy when I meet somebody and I kind of stalk them and find out what their birthday is to see if
Yeah.
especially if their personality is a certain way. I'm like, I got to see if they're a certain path. And sure enough, it's so crazy how
Mhm.
it fits. It really is. So, how would you help a grieving mom maintain hope without depending solely on signs? Because I know early on, I mean, that's all you want all day long, every second, because you're in, this grief. But obviously, when I speak as a caring listener, I offer them other things and just to try to say, okay, the signs are there. If you don't see them now, you will. How would you offer a parent hope um, without solely depending on signs so that they don't?
Well, I'll tell you what the biggest thing for me has been. It's been finding a community of other mamas. And that's been so important because we learn from each other. We experience each other's seasons of quiet and more, because sometimes kids get quiet. I definitely have times where I'm like, Jagger, where are you, kiddo? Um, but we kind of help each other along and we encourage each other. And there are times that, I've gotten on the phone with like Sarah or Amy or one of my other good mama friends, and I'm just like, this is really not, this isn't all it's cracked up to be. And they'll remind me what we're doing. We're walking each other home. We still have work to do. Our kids are proud of us. They're right here, and I need that. But I also think there's like getting rest drinking enough water, eating healthy food, getting out into nature. Meditation is a big one. Even keeping a gratitude list. Those are all things that kind of prime you for signs.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with you having a tribe. I mean, early on my journey, I didn't want to be around anybody other than other moms that were on my journey because I just felt like nobody else understands me. I don't fit in anymore, which is not true. But of course, this is what I was thinking at the time. So finding those other moms, even if I was just meeting, we were meeting for coffee, it was something I was looking forward to. And I think we need to keep doing things that we enjoy, that we look forward to during our journey, so that we can, because that's what our kids want for us. Another question for you, are you moving toward being a medium in your journey?
I am, I'm just going to be very transparent. I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing, and I'm okay with that. I am working on a documentary, and we're shopping it. We're looking for funding right now. We have a teaser and a website, tragic-2-magic.com. I have written this book. I had so many parents respond to the questionnaire that we really have and new ways of, you know, um, looking for signs and finding signs that, there's probably a sequel to this that's going to come at some point. There's a children's book in the works. I have
Oh,
a feature film treatment that's out there. I feel like I'm in a very creative season of my life, and it's all inspired by Jagger. I do numerology readings, so all of that hodgepodge lodge is leading me somewhere. I'm just not sure where yet.
oh. Well, we'll look forward to finding out. Miriam just sent a message. Hi, Miriam. She said, I just calculated my personal year, the year my son passed, and it was a 7 as well. So
Wow.
she said, thank you for sharing my insight. She also would have thought it would have been a 9 year. But ironically, she says 2026 is her 9 year, and she's quit her job, purging stuff and exploring um, how I will change my life. It's very enlightening. So do you think signs are strictly for, from our kids to comfort us, or do you believe that some signs could guide our life?
Well, I mean, guide our life. That's a good question. I
I
do
mean,
think
yeah,
that
like,
some decisions are really for the living. And I don't think like our kids are like, here's the numbers for the lottery, or but I think, I mean, even before Jagger passed, if I was trying to decide on whether to take a job or whether to do a certain thing, like I was more than the green lights, I was paying attention to the red lights. I always called them the speed bumps. And if I hit too many speed bumps, I'm like, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. I will say that the last car I bought, I was like, it's kind of expensive. I really like it. Jagger, should I get it? And a truck pulled in front of me and it said, go for it. The
oh,
car's a little, I probably shouldn't have bought it, but I do love it. So
you deserve, I'm sure he felt you deserved it
he did.
because
I do deserve it.
I do sometimes feel like, even with just not signs from, like, I'll ask for signs, just for my life path, just
Yeah.
because I know that it's all. But it's funny because the other day I had posted a picture on Facebook, and it was a picture of my sisters and my mom, and it was just a picture my sister found, and it was crazy because all of a sudden I opened Facebook again, and it was posted 3 times. And I thought, that's weird. So I thought, I'm going to delete the others. Well, I went to delete it, and it completely deleted all of them. So I went back and I went to my trash because to restore it, and it wasn't there at all. And so
Hmm.
instead of reposting it, I said, there is some reason that I guess I'm not. And it
Yeah.
could, I said, there's maybe a reason that I shouldn't put that picture on there. Maybe my mom didn't like how she looked. I mean, but I didn't
Well,
go back and put it on there. It was so funny. So I do believe sometimes that we could get signs that aren't related, just related to our lives here for some reason.
Well, I will say that, my friend Sarah uses a pendulum and she will ask her pendulum and she'll ask her son Elijah to tell her through her pendulum, whether and sometimes she'll get nothing. It won't even move. And she's like, I know, Elijah, you want me to figure it out for myself. For me, I do have this art pix, which is a glass block image of Jagger, and it sits on a lighted base. And he communicates with me a lot through that. And I will say that the first time I came out to Phoenix to visit my parents, it was still during the pandemic. And I wasn't sure about it. Should I travel? And I'm like calling around, trying to make reservations and everything. And the light turned green. And I knew he was like, yeah, go see grandma and grandpa. So
Oh,
sometimes yes, I do. But like I said, I do think the big decisions, that's really, we still have to live our lives.
absolutely. We are, we still have to live. And I do think sometimes that we have to figure it out.
Mhm.
Maybe there's a lesson in that. And so they won't guide us. We have to figure it out. So, which kind of leads me to my next question, which is how do you balance openness with divine communication while staying grounded?
Oh, that's a good question too. Sometimes I'm very ungrounded and I have to remind myself to sit and meditate. And I almost visually will, um, I will visualize roots coming out of my feet and going into the ground and just like breathing because sometimes I'm all over the place. I think that getting into nature helps me ground myself. Um, and yeah, I think, and again, just like having that dialogue with my other mamas really keeps me, connected. I think for
Right.
me, the fear is isolating myself, you know, and so I have to keep that connection.
Absolutely. And you talked about that you do meditate, obviously, and do you do automatic writing? Do you do the pendulum? Tell us a little bit about your spiritual practices and what has helped
So
you.
I don't like, I feel like, the book is a bit of a sampler plate because I've kind of sampled everything. I don't have a lot of regular practices. And in fact, I'm taking a class with Sue right now where she had us do an automatic writing exercise. And she said, and I don't do it as much as would well, maybe I should or would be helpful to me. But the exercise was to ask our child, why did you have to leave? And tell me details about our soul agreement. And then, just channel in your child and just write as fast as you can. Don't edit it and go back and read it. And one of the big things he said was, Mom, you have to remember, I'm right here, right here. He said it twice. And so I finished the assignment and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go get a cup of tea. I got up to get a cup of tea and I heard some loud bang. A painting I had of him on my bedroom wall had fallen to the floor.
No.
He is right here.
Oh, yes. Yeah, they are. And they could, yes, no doubt about that. Uh, I have a question for you. Do you feel like your family members understand, or are they supporting you? If not, how have you negotiated that?
I think that my parents have been on this journey with me right from the beginning. And I think it has I mean, I would say that it's opened them up as much as it's opened me up. It's actually been surprising how invested they are and how many signs they get and they tell me about. I know that like my one brother had a near-death experience where he was riding with a bike group out in Arizona, and a car came and hit somebody, and he had just been talking to them, and all of a sudden he's like, I feel like riding faster, and he rode faster, and 20 seconds later this thing happened, and he said, Jagger, it was Jagger. He pushed me out of the way. So I think that my family gets it and they do support it, and I am lucky, I guess, because I don't have anyone in my life who thinks that I'm making things up or delusional.
That's
So,
wonderful. That does, it's funny because my parents, I mean, my mom's always been, spiritual, believed in God or universe, but my dad, even though he forced me to go to Catholic school forever, but then he didn't even believe in anything. But it is funny because after Tyler passed, I mean, they he totally believes. I mean, the things
yeah.
that were happening and it's really nice because they're older and my mom did pass, but my dad and he has no fear. He'll say, I'll
Mhm.
get to see my grandson. So,
Yeah.
and
That's
before,
exactly what my parents say.
yeah, I'll
They
get to
tease me. They're like, we're going to see him first.
Yeah. And my mom has said to me, I'll let you know. And she has passed away. She has said, I'll let you know when I get there. She used to say that. And now they always come through together. And I always
Mhm.
say, I don't hear other kids. But I do hear Tyler. And for the longest time, I didn't hear my mom. Um, but my mom was kind of quiet and didn't talk a lot, except she does say whenever Tyler will say something to me, then I'll hear my mom, which is what she would have said. Listen to your son, daughter, which is so funny. The first time I heard daughter, I went, okay, that's my mom because she would say that, she would call me daughter. And it was just really crazy. But so they always come in together now.
Isn't it magical when you accept as real hearing their voice in your head? Because in the beginning, I didn't believe it because I said, well, of course, I know his turn of phrase, I know his pacing, I know his tone of voice. Of course, I'm making this up. But what I found is that when I will ask him a question, his answer will cut me off. And it's just like he was in life. He'll
Absolutely.
jump in and start answering before I even finish. It's happened to my stepdad. He asked him a question and he came in the same way. And it's so clear. I think the first time that I really was like, oh, yeah, I had a medium say, he knows that you talk to his urn. And so I got off the reading and I said, Jagger, I don't have an urn. I have this shrine over here. I have a shrine in there. I have a shrine in. And he goes, oh, I'm your sunshine, your only sunshine. And he started laughing. And I was like, I knew it was him.
Oh,
I
yeah.
knew it.
Yes. Oh, you could tell. And that's what I explain. I go, I can't explain it. It just comes fast. It'll cut off.
Yes.
There's just a difference between my thought and when I hear him. And
Mhm.
I've said for the longest time, although now I know, but it's even to this day, I'll say, oh, if I hear something and I want it to be real, but then I'll think, well, am I losing it? Am I crazy? And I won't, without going into a bunch of detail, I recently met somebody when I was visiting my son, and she didn't really he she didn't really talk much about Tyler because TJ, my older son, doesn't talk a lot about her. He's kind of private about it, so she didn't know a lot, but she noticed the tattoo on my hand. And then she had told me she had a near death experience when I said, well, that's my son Tyler. And she said, yes, I'd heard TJ's brother passed. And she said, well, I had a near death experience. And, I see those on the other side. And she said, but since your son's private, since TJ's private, who she worked with, he doesn't want to, I really can't read for you because he said it's private. That's all that we talked about. But then she sent me a private message after I got home and she said, and I never told her that I talked to Tyler or I hear Tyler. I said, yes, I believe in this stuff. When she had said, well, I hope you don't think I'm crazy. I said, oh no, I know this stuff has saved me. That's all I said. And then she sent me a private message and she said, okay, he's willing to give you this one little message through me. He said, yes, tell my mom she hears me. She's not crazy. So, and I love that because, even to this day, even though I know it's him, we're humans. And sometimes you're like, oh, but I know, we know what we know.
Yeah, Jagger said to a medium, more than one, my mom can hear me.
Oh, yeah. See, they know that we know, but then they like to validate it for us because I know
Mhm.
I like to hear that. So, and I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah.
So, do you think the signs change over time? Do you ever worry that they're going to stop coming?
I think that maybe they get more sophisticated, or there was a period of time where, and I think I talk about this in the book, where every medium that I went to, and in the beginning I went to a lot, they would talk about Jagger's hair and they would be like, oh, he's talking about his hair. And he had like shaggy hair, sort of like 70s style shaggy hair when he passed. And I was like, yeah, he had nice hair, whatever. It took me a year and a half before I realized that he was trying to say to me, Mom, I've still got my hair, because his brothers and his dad, both sides of the family, are bald. And so I used to tease him, like, don't get too used to that hair, kid. You're going to end up bald like the rest of the family. So every reading, he's like, I still got it, Mom. And it took me a year and a half. And I could hear him in my head going, man, it took you long enough, you know?
Oh, oh. Well, there's a question here. Jennifer is saying, I would love to be at that point, hearing Eli's voice in my head. When did that start to happen for you? Was it right when your son transitioned, or did it take time? Did you practice or expose yourself to anything in particular to encourage it along?
I think that again, I felt like I was just answering for myself. I felt like it was me. I would say, I'm trying to think of an example, are you okay? Yeah, Mom, I'm great, or whatever. And I would answer in my head. And so it took me a while until I began to, like, it was a conscious choice for me to believe that what I was hearing in my head and the things I was seeing when the light flickered, that it wasn't an electrical anomaly, you know, to accept those as real. And then I had a, a meditation where it was actually a Suzanne Giesemann guided meditation, and it was a contact meditation. And I was saying to him, I'm so sorry that I didn't teach you how to drive. And he cut me off and he said, I drive. I have a Jeep now. And later that day, I met another mom with a child in spirit to go for a hike. And she's now a trance medium. And she said, on the way over here, I asked your son if he had any message for you. And all he said was, I like Jeeps. And all of a sudden, I was like, I'm really hearing him, you know? So it was not overnight. And it was a lot of, working with automatic writing and just saying to myself, I'm choosing to believe today that this is real. So it's a
Absolutely.
process.
It is definitely a process, and it takes practice, and we get better at it as time goes on. And you have to. It's funny because when my niece was pregnant with her first baby, and I felt like I said, "Is this a girl or a boy?" And then I would hear Tyler say, because in my head I was thinking it was a girl, but then I would hear boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, and kind of laughing. And so then he said, just, what do you think? But then I remember thinking, well, it was actually her second one, because I remember thinking, it's another girl, but then it turned out to be a boy. So at first I was kind of disappointed, because I immediately thought, I'm not hearing him right. I'm not hearing him right. And then my sister, who's always, she has some abilities and she's thought about this. She said, he didn't want to give the surprise away. That's why he was laughing and saying boy girl, because I did tell her that. And then he said, well, what do you think? She goes, you have to trust it. But that's how I used to be early on, because if I thought I heard something and then I was wrong, then I suddenly thought, oh, maybe I'm wrong. But it takes work, and it takes understanding what they're telling you and to trust it. And it's a whole new language, like you talk
Yeah.
about. It's a new language that you learn in their book, and you just have to trust them.
Mhm.
So I have another question here. My son in spirit tells me love is all that matters while I'm still on my earthly journey. They are trying to help me practice this, even though I make lots of mistakes. Do you, Amber, feel Jagger telling you the same thing?
Yeah, it is. Love is it's the big lesson that we're all here. I mean, I learned from coming on HPH meetings. We're in, Earth School here, and it's really about self-love, showing other people love. And, the circumstances of my son's death were in the beginning, I was looking for justice, and I was, on the phone with police and, the chief of police and the detectives and the mayor and the DA's office. And Jagger said to me in um, uh, through mediums, this is not about justice. Let it go. I played a hand in my own passing, and this is not your fight. And I will tell you that once I put that down, I felt such a relief. It was like the world was lifted off my shoulders, and I just fell backwards into spirituality and love. I mean, this is a realm of love that when we are communicating with our children, that we're entering. And what could be wrong with that? I think everybody would agree that that's what this world needs more. I sound like a Coca-Cola commercial.
No, it's true. It's true. I love it. I love that. And I do believe the signs, they always keep coming. And if we ask for them, even if we're, they're more subtle, we don't need them we go on further down the journey if we believe it, and especially if we're communicating with it. But when we ask, I know that they're there. Do you think that those signs sometimes reflect our kids' personalities? Like they might.
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. One time I said to Jagger, all right, I want a sign, make it money. And I was kind of laughing, And I went out and I don't know, I went for a run. I came home and I'm looking, the whole time I'm out, I'm looking on the ground. I'm thinking I'm going to find a dollar or something. And I had gone out, I'd come back in. I went back out to the store. I came back in. It wasn't until like the fourth time I crossed the threshold that there was a penny on my doormat. Why didn't I see it before? And I was like, really, Jag, a penny? Could you have given me less than a penny? But I will tell you that, and some of you know this story, I think. A week after the funeral, I was in Jagger's room and I was just a mess. Like everybody had left. I had closed the door and I'm sobbing. And I realized there's a t-shirt hanging on the back of the door. And I had my cousins and friends had cleaned out the room. I had people who came through and I allowed them to take things. How this t-shirt was still on the back of the door, and it looked like a white t-shirt. I took it down and I just about keeled over. Can I cuss? It had the it
Oh,
had the Looney Tunes logo and it said, "That's all, fuckers." And
oh,
that's my son's personality. And I was sitting there sobbing and laughing. And I was like, too soon, But yeah, he is so himself, you know.
yes.
It,
And that's
he's
what we want.
yes.
We want that, and I've always tell Tyler that now because I heard someone say, as they cross, there's their higher self, and our kids are also evolved. That's why they pass at a young age. And I
Yeah.
said, look, when you come through to me, I want you. I don't care if you swear or whatever. I want to know it's you. I want you. I don't want. I know you're evolved, but I don't want the evolved version. I want the Tyler that.
Oh, Jagger cusses up a storm whenever he comes through.
Yes,
Every time.
yes, yeah, because that's what. Although they're
And they'll
all.
say, they'll say, he's funny. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Oh my gosh, I hear that all the time. Oh, he's funny, and he was, and all these kids. I feel like because I talk to so many parents, all of our kids are just so. Regardless, they are just amazing kids. I mean,
They
everybody
are.
loved them. They were so compassionate and so kind, and even if they swore, even whatever else, they just were amazing kids, and that's why they finished what they came here to do.
Agree.
That was one of the things that helped me so much with Elizabeth. It was such a powerful statement when she said, "Well, our kids are home and we're in school,"
Yeah.
I've used, and it's just true. And there's just something that statement felt so powerful to me.
Well, there's a really, it's so odd in this culture to say that I'm happy for my child that they got to go home. And there was a moment very early on when I was still in my like cursing at God phase. And I was kneeling at my son's bedside and, like talking to him. And I heard him as clear as day say, Mom, can't you just be happy for me? And his watch was in his bedside table and it beat 2 times right after he said that. And I think about
Oh,
that all the time. I am learning to be happy for him.
yes. And I tell parents that all the time when they'll say, "Well, they were just in the prime of their life and they were about to do this." And I'm like, "Honestly, they're way better than we are." I go,
Yeah.
we're the ones, we're the ones who have this journey that's hard now. They're great.
Mhm.
They're doing everything that they wanted, that they missed out here up there, and they don't have the pain, the suffering, and now they're helping us. So we just, we need to find a way to be happy, because if we're going to be in this world, who wants to be in this world and be miserable? Let's
Yeah.
carry that relationship on with our kids. Let's make them proud of us, and let's help others, because helping others is not only healing, but I mean that's what we're here for. Like you said, it's about love.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean the communication that comes through from Jagger, it's never negative. It's always, let's go, let's do this. It's very energetic and it's like,
always.
it made me really conscious of, if I'm going to be here and I'm going to have this continuing relationship with my child, what do I want them to experience through my eyes? Do I want them to see me curled up in bed crying? do or do I want them to have adventures and be with me and be of service to people and just try to find joy? And believe me, I'm not always joyful. My close friends will tell you that I have days where I'm just like, yeah, this isn't really working for me. And the beautiful thing about that is when you have a community of other moms or dads or on this, in this on this path that we're on, is that those kind of days don't hit us all at the same time.
Right.
So we're there to support each other and pull each other back and remind each other of why we're still here.
Exactly. There is another question here, Pamela. Boy, you've had a lot of questions. So you're
Nice.
very,
Thank you, everybody.
yes. Pamela says, I hear my son's voice. I limit who I tell. I feel as though others who haven't had a child cross the veil don't understand this. Do you find you only talk about this with HPH families?
No, I'm pretty open about it, but I had to like Jagger passed during the pandemic. So I started, I got started going back out into the world coming out of pandemic. So I'd already lost some social skills anyway. And, having my son pass. And, I remember going to the dentist and the hygienist is like, so how are you dealing with the pandemic? And I'm like, my son died. I just kind of blurted it out. And I've had to train myself to be like, do I need to talk about this? Do I need to tell them? But for the most part, I don't edit myself where it comes to signs. And maybe people when I leave are going like this, but I don't think so. People are really interested. They want to hear more. And I mean, most of us we communicate clearly and we don't, sound like we're not well. I think it's interesting to people,
I
you know?
agree. I agree. I will. I've talked to. Reconnected with some of my high school friends, and we hiked together. And I wasn't, I wasn't. We were on this long hike, so I started talking to them a little bit, and they're very they go to church a lot. And I thought, well, I don't want to say things that, but then they started asking questions. So then, of course, I said, well, I'm going to let them know what has helped me. And you would not believe they couldn't get enough of what they were like. This is
Yeah.
amazing. And then one of the moms, well, one of my friends, and she's mom, she said, my sister has these abilities. And
Mhm.
I said, wow. So everybody, I mean, there's a lot more.
Everybody's got a story.
Everybody,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Everybody does. So you're getting messages. Thank you so much. Looking forward to your book. And there, somebody else has said, I've ordered your book. Beautifully uplifting messages. So before we close, Amber, why? I mean, obviously, all of us would, give everything back if we could just have our kids, but we don't have that option. So what would you say, where is the silver lining. What has happened during this journey, the most profound thing that has helped you, the silver lining through this all?
I guess I think the biggest one is I don't have any fear of death anymore. That's just gone. And that's a huge gift, you know. And I talking with, other mamas, we talk about all the magic we experience in this life. I mean, the things I've seen, my son has moved objects in my home. He has, things have lifted. Um, just the things that are just unexplainable that have never happened to me before. I mean, there's been a couple of times that, he's turned the TV on and all of a sudden the show's playing called, The Worst Roommate or something. And I'm like, okay, Jagger, that's really funny. I mean, and the way I looked at it, I've been on this earth now at this point 60 years. I've never had a TV turn on before, so we have paid the highest price to experience this beautiful magic and all of the people I've met and being able to find new work and new ways to be of service to people. I mean, that's pretty magical.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's just beautiful. And thank you so much for being
Of
here. And,
course, I
um,
so appreciate this.
your
Oh,
book
and I
is
just wanted to say
amazing.
that I will, so my birthday is in April. I'm going to make, and I think Elizabeth will put it in the newsletter, I will make the book available for free downloads for the audiobook to celebrate my birthday. So that's coming up in like a month and a half, if you can wait that long. But I
Oh,
appreciate you all.
thank you so much, Amber. And if everyone wants to unmute, so you could say thank you.
Yes, that was great.
Thank you, Anne.
It's the 13th of April that she'll started, just to let you know. So we're excited about that,
Thank
Amber. That was
you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Amber.
you
Amber.
so
Love
much,
you.
Amber.
Thank you,
Yeah, Amber, that
Amber.
was wonderful. Really
Carol.
appreciate it.
Great.
Amazing. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a
Thank you.
wonderful
Thank you.
Thank
Everyone.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night.